I welcome everyone today. We have a slightly smaller crowd, I've understood, because of rain and because of world events that are creating quite a protest situation in downtown Cleveland. So I appreciate that y'all made it. It says something for your dedication. It says something for your passion for Twice Exceptional Kids. It says something for you coming from somewhere else and making the best of it, and so you're here. So truly appreciate it. If you have a chance to hang out a little bit longer in Cleveland, we have a world-renowned art museum. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is always great fun, and I understand some of y'all made it to the second largest theater district in the country, right behind New York. So there's lots of little points of pride of Cleveland, and we're excited that Cleveland State is here as part of the urban community, and that we're beginning the Twice Exceptional program. One of the things I was reflecting on last night was how we have found our people, and what a wonderful opportunity it is to connect with our group, our tribe, in a sense, because we're a group of folks who are passionate about these kids who don't quite fit into special education, who don't quite fit into gifted, who have these talents that we have to advocate for. And as advocates and as researchers and as teacher preparation and as heads of schools and as heads of states, districts, that we really try to bring that voice to each other. So having an opportunity to talk with each other, engage with each other, whether it's online, whether it's hybrid, whether it's here face-to-face, has been so rewarding and such a powerful experience. And so I'm deeply grateful that you came. I'm deeply grateful that you're participating, and am so excited to see what the future holds. So we're going to end today with we're going to have our last day kind of focus on the future. We're going to think about what next, where do we go next? If we have a community, how do we provide services for kids? How do we prepare teachers for kids? How do we work with systems for these kids? And how do we help parents with their kids? And so that community that we create, we find, we help each other. And understanding that through universities, through school systems, through parent groups, through different advocacy groups, through different components, that we can connect together and really begin to make some noise or buzz about it. So here at Cleveland State, we use the concept of the bee. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the website, but bees weren't supposed to be able to fly for many, many years. All the scientists were very confused about bees because they don't follow the rules of aviation. Their wings are too small to lift their bodies off the ground. And so for a long time, they just said, So there's a wonderful quote from the Bee Movie that I use of that: bees don't really care what humans think is impossible, they do it anyways. And that's our Twice Exceptional kids, that they have lots of people telling them what they can't do. There's lots of focus. People are befuddled by them. And they fly anyways if they have a teacher. The main difference between bees and humans is that people need teachers in order to be able to fly. So as teachers, we need to use creativity. We need to help kids use their creativity. We need to connect with them in very unusual ways. So bees actually fly. They only discovered it in 2004 by spinning their wings in figure eights. It creates lift by creating essentially mini hurricanes, vortices underneath their wings. It is, a scientist said, it is not efficient. You would not design a bee this way. So they create disturbances wherever they go. And I kind of figured that that's a really good image of Twice Exceptional kids, that they create disturbances. We're here to help them fly, to help them find that lift, to use their wings in creative, unusual ways. And I wanted to start us off today by looking at why we're here in Cleveland. So some folks have come up to me and said, oh my gosh, about your program. And I'm like, actually, it's not my program. I was hired by the program, but I didn't start the program. And the advertisement came out in the Chronicle of Higher Education and Higher Ed Jobs. And I saw it and I thought, seriously? A Twice Exceptional professor position? I've never seen one of those. And in that same day, I had about 5 or 6 different people email me the link and say, you need to apply for this. And I thought, well, duh, of course. But there were a lot of people who applied, and there were a lot of people who were very interested. And I was more floored as to how the heck do you get it through a university system with its multiple levels of administration, understanding what twice exceptional is, finding that process. It's very, very painful to build any sort of program through state government. And yet this appeared. And so I did a little digging, and I found out that the reason that we're here, the reason this program got started, is because of an angry parent. And it always starts with an angry parent. An angry parent who, though, is a beloved professor, who literally teaches the courses on activism, on community development, on getting things done, who got a law degree to advocate for his kid, who really pulled together the community. So no one does anything by themselves, but it started there, and then it continued. And then he found other angry parents, and then he found folks who were very focused on social justice and doing right by all kids. And it happened. And so I am deeply grateful to help build the program, to help promote the program, but it's not my program. And so I'd like to introduce Dr. Brian Harper, who is much more than just an angry parent, but it started there. And so he's going to tell us a little bit about that story. He's going to tell us a little bit about his story, and he's going to tell you lessons, in a sense, of how to get stuff done. And I am eternally grateful for him. It is a dream come true for me to be here, but I hope I'm fulfilling, and I'm hoping to accomplish other dreams as well. So Dr. Brian Harper is an associate professor in educational, help me with here, educational studies, educational psychology. He's in the department with me in educational studies, research, and technology, and has been a phenomenal support and an advocate for twice exceptional kids. So no further ado.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, I'm going to do the first social faux pas and have my phone here. And the reason I have my phone here is because I get to talk about my favorite thing in the world to talk about. And if I don't stop talking when I'm supposed to, people will make angry faces at me and will be here all day. So my phone is only here so I can see when I should shut up, okay? I'm Brian Harper. I'm a faculty member in, formerly Curriculum and Foundations. This is sort of the story. I'm blessed to be a part of the journey towards the creation of the program, and I want to walk you through kind of how that story transpired. But work with me. One of my favorite things is to tell stories. I'm a Philadelphian at heart, which means I'm an East Coast guy, and right on. Which means I'm a storyteller at heart. So work with me. I promise I'll get back to the point, but everything I'm going to tell you is relevant. Make sense? Awesome. That handsome gentleman in the hat is my favorite person in the world. That is my son, Brian. He is, gosh, we're young back then. This is January of 2004. Let me tell you about what was happening in January of 2004. Now, stay with me. This is all relevant. In January of 2004, I was graduating from Ohio State. That's actually a picture from graduation. Side note, there are more pictures of my son that day than there are of me, which shows you who was important. I was getting a PhD in educational psychology. I had just taken a job at Cleveland State University, so it moved from Philadelphia to Columbus and then later to Cleveland. My focus at that time was identity development, academic self-regulation. And I had just become a dad that January. This picture might be May or June or something, whatever. And I'd just become a dad. and that's my kid. And life changed. January 29, 2004, life was completely different. I had no idea. Am I allowed to curse? I had no idea what the heck I was doing, okay? But I did know I loved him. I knew I loved him more than I could imagine. Moved to Cleveland. He's growing. Things are happening. Remember, I've got a PhD in educational psychology, so a large part of my training focused on developmental psychology as well. As a developmental psychologist, I knew a great deal about the markers my kid was supposed to hit. Your first word should come here. Your first step should come here. And I noticed he was a tick behind, just a tick behind on many of them. Things like language development. I noticed if he was sitting somewhere and I would call him, Brian, 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 he wouldn't respond to his name. I also noticed that he wasn't making eye contact. I noticed little things as he began to move around. Things like he would take the books off of the bookshelf and just put them on the floor. Not to destroy them or anything, they just were there. I noticed when chairs were not lined up correctly. We would take him to a Sunday school class and the chairs weren't lined up, and he would reorganize the chairs. I recall taking him that first Christmas in 2004 to get a picture taken. Remember, the story's still going somewhere. I promise I'll get back to the program. Taking him to have his picture taken at the mall and him freaking out and running because just hands over his ears and running. This wasn't 2004, it was a little later. And eventually he is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, somewhere around 2 or 3. At the same time, he begins having seizures. So he's having grand mal seizures. As he has these seizures, they're left frontal lobe seizures. And again, developmental psychologist, I knew a bit about this, and I became aware that it affected his receptive language abilities. So while he could communicate verbally, he had a great deal of difficulty with things like reading comprehension and processing language as people talk to him. And that was tough. Great deal of anxiety about that. What are we going to do with this kid? How are we going to manage this? But somewhere around the same time, I noticed something else. I noticed that he had an incredible memory for detail, incredible memory. I also noticed my son, I should have taken a picture of this, he had a drawer where he kept his things, and it looks like complete garbage to us. Tons and tons of items in it, but if you took one item out of it, he'd know which item was missing. We tested this theory. We got him a ball pit. Red, blue, green, orange, yellow balls, all in a ball pit. Put them in, took one out, put it behind your back. Say, which one's missing? Oh, you have the yellow one in your hand. I thought, that's a little weird. And he was incredibly good at math. So I thought, okay, well, we'll see what we do with this. I don't know where any of this is going. And I knew academically a great deal about autism, but I wasn't sure how to parent here. Stick with me, the story's going somewhere. And then there came the day where the boy needed to have his tonsils removed. We have one of the most wonderful hospitals in the country, Cleveland Clinic. We take the child to Cleveland Clinic for his tonsils to be removed, and I'm standing with him. What you're looking at is a picture of a perpetual motion machine. I told you I like to tell stories. The perpetual motion machine, this isn't the one at Cleveland Clinic, but there was one at Cleveland Clinic that had a ball that went through a cycle, okay? At the end of the cycle, the ball bounced off of a gong, okay? I'm standing, we're waiting to see the doctor with my son, and the ball hits the gong, and he looks up, and he looks at his dad, and he says, C#. Thought, that's interesting. That's certainly interesting. So, I record the gong song with my phone. We get home, we've got a little Casio keyboard. I play a C#, and guess what? He's right. So I thought, that's certainly intriguing. And I did what every suburban parent would do in this situation. I said, we got to get this boy in front of an instrument. Let's make it a piano. And so we did. Now, side note, it was important to me as a dad that his taste in music be strong. So, I tried. He still favors pop music, but, can't win them all. So we get the kid in front of a piano, and there are lessons, and he starts moving incredibly quickly as a pianist. He's developing. He's too small to get to the pedals without something to support him. But he's incredibly good right away. And we think, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. What are we going to do with this? How is this going to work? Now, meanwhile, he's in school. He's a first grader. He moves into a self-contained classroom because while he is verbal, he struggles a great deal with just large crowds and the noises. The sounds are too much for him. So he's in a self-contained classroom. And while he's there, he's having a ball. Why? Because he can read, and he's incredibly good at math. So the tasks he's being asked to perform are ones he can do. So in this self-contained classroom, a teacher will say, hey, Brian, what's this word? And if you get this word right, you can bounce on the trampoline and have chocolate milk afterwards. So he looks at it, table, bam, and he's bouncing on a trampoline and having chocolate milk. Now he's not moving academically. As a pianist, he's growing. Academically, he's stagnating. We were blessed to have a teacher in the district who said he shouldn't be in a self-contained classroom, we'll put him in our room. I thought, okay, this is turning around. This kid's a strong pianist. He can read. It's first grade. We're going to be able to make this work. And then, I wish I could play, oh, that makes me sad. That's Tiny Brian playing Moonlight Sonata. What's that you say? You have to hear it? Of course you do. Oh, terrible. You indulge me, we'll be here all day, I'm telling you. When he's playing, when he's young, I don't know how old he is. He's very tiny though. While he's playing, suddenly this kid who is struggling to express his emotions, is struggling to build connections, has connections. He's got friends. There were little girls when he was in first grade who used to say, Brian, pretend to play piano. You know, air guitar, he's playing air piano while they dance around. And so he's making all kinds of connections with others, and it's great. It's the greatest thing ever. And he's put into a mainstream classroom, and we're like, we've solved it. We got it. It's going to be okay. Except, oops, get rid of that. Except, we got a problem. Here's the problem. His teacher is strong. His teacher is considerate. His teacher is caring. But am I allowed to curse? She has no idea what the heck she's doing with him. And so I go to meeting after meeting after meeting in his classroom where I'm being told, Brian does this well, but here are the 15 struggles he has in the classroom. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. This is the same child I'm watching soar when there's a piano in front of him, but now you're telling me he is struggling to sit and process the questions after you read a story. It was almost as if they were talking about two different kids. And I thought, there has to be a way for these two things to meet. Because when we have meetings, I feel like you're telling me my child is not salvageable. And I was furious, absolutely furious, because this is my kid. And at the time he's 6 and then 7, but time is running out. In my mind, I'm constantly hearing a clock ticking that at some point your school system is going to say, we're done with it, figure it out. And I had no idea what to do. And there were a lot of tears. And there was a lot of yelling. And it really came down to these questions. I would go to meeting after meeting after meeting and ask the following questions. Are you really seeing my kid? Because all I'm hearing from you is what he can't do. You don't really even seeing him. What resources do you have to support him? You know the things that are good about him. You know where his strengths are. Why aren't those things being supported? What type of training is available for your teachers and administrators and support staff to help my kid? I had never heard the term twice exceptional. at that point in my life. I didn't know it was a thing. When they asked me, what's going, your child is exceptional, what does that mean? I would say autism, epilepsy. He has seizures, here are the areas where he struggles. Because those were the only conversations we were able to have. And that is incredibly frustrating. It was then, it's making me angry to think about it now. But mostly it came down to the last one. Shouldn't somebody be doing something, right? I know my kid is capable. I've seen him do this stuff. The piano, I know he can do this. But shouldn't somebody be doing something? Now, if you'd asked me at that point in 2012, I would have clearly been able to identify the problem. Very, very clearly. When are students screened? Should there be a screening in place to identify strengths as well as weaknesses? Are teachers being trained? That second one is the one that really hits me. How do we support these kids emotionally? How do we support kids who thrive in some areas and struggles in others? The last one is the one that was the biggest. This was my flag to wave. If I could have printed it on a t-shirt or tattooed it on my forehead, I would have. How do we propose to use his strengths? I know where his strengths were to work on his challenges. All right, hold on, I'm gonna mute this. How do I mute this? The hell with that plan. Okay. This was the problem. This is where I identified that there was a clear division between what was happening in the district. And we were blessed to live in a very good district academically. This is where we were blessed. Am I running out of time? Okay. Yes. Bless you. And I'll just ramble while you do.
Okay.
The division between where I was and what I wanted and what the school wanted was huge. And it was really based on the idea of the problem as identified. The teachers weren't trained. The administrators weren't trained. I can tell you in all honesty, I had not heard the term twice exceptional until I was maybe 10 years into my career as a faculty member at Cleveland State. That's perfect.
Okay, but now,
Whatever you just
there we
did.
go. Yep, there we go. Got it. Okay.
You good?
I think.
Hey, all right. Remember this guy? Not the handsome one, the one with the red thing. He's a college professor at this time, and I thought there's got to be a way for me to be more influential about all of this. Because by the time we get to 2021, my kid is 17. That 17-year-old is a senior in high school. Ups, downs, there were challenges in middle school that were insane. I don't have enough time to go into all of them. There were challenges as we tried to think about transitioning with him. A lot of it was making it up as we went along. And I thought to myself, there has to be a better way to do this. I told you I'd get back to the point. Now we're back at the point. I am blessed to have a wonderfully receptive department chair. My department chair and I we have a running joke that our juices really get flowing around 7:30 a.m. And so as I'm driving wherever I need to be, or she's driving wherever she needs to be, we talk on the phone, and great ideas come out of our conversations on the phone. In December of 2021, we had a conversation, and that conversation centered around the idea of requesting a position. Now, for the folks who aren't university folks in this room, the way it generally works here is that at some point each year, each of the departments has an opportunity to request a position of the provost. You make an argument, we really need another ed psych person, or we could really use another literacy person, or what have you. Enrollment is always a challenge, and so it becomes difficult to make the argument that you should actually receive a position. During an informal conversation with my department chair, we started talking about my son a little, because, that's all I have to talk about that's interesting. And so as we talk about him, she mentions the term, hey, was Brian ever classified as twice exceptional? And I said, well, not formally, and I kind of walked her through the short version of the story I just shared with you, and she said, what about the idea of us requesting a twice exceptional position of the provost? Now, this was going to be a little different than anything we'd done before because this was going to require a different approach. So generally, our department at that point in time was called Curriculum and Foundations. So at that point in time, if Curriculum and Foundations was requesting a position, it would be a single position for our department. Make sense? What we were requesting, let me back up a little bit from that. Our department houses the gifted program. The teacher education program the teacher education department houses the special ed program. What we were talking about in our informal conversation was, can we do something that would allow the two departments to work together to create a position? This individual would prospectively serve in both departments and would in fact teach courses in both departments, be responsible for helping to build a program that really would be housed in both departments. A wonderful collaboration. We thought, very interesting. And the more we talked, the more excited we got because we thought there's nothing like this. So the first thing we did, we started looking across the country to see, okay, there's got to be a roadmap to follow and how to create something like this. There was nothing like it anywhere. And you know what's cool? The anxiety you feel when you start to do something that people haven't done before, after that went away, we got super excited and said, this is something that could work. And so my chair went back and she spoke with folks in the SPED department, she spoke with the chair of the teacher ed program, and the conversation moved towards what this position would begin to look like, and we started to flesh it out. And here's what we said. I'm going to read this from the original write-up we had. We put together a call for submissions for people to apply, and we said we were looking for a successful candidate who would ultimately be the coordinator of the Gifted and Talented Master's Program and the dual licensure program in special education and gifted ed. The candidate needs to be committed to developing and strengthening the program by taking a leadership role in curriculum design and implementation. In addition, the candidate will teach a variety of courses, supervise students online and face-to-face, commitment to developing the program, to moving it forward. Position responsibilities include but are not limited to program coordinator, teaching, scholar, research, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We put together this incredibly detailed proposal, and then we crossed our fingers and we prayed. The proposal goes to the provost, and bam, they say we're going to get the position. And we celebrated. It was awesome. But it's just the beginning. Like anything in life, nothing is ever as simple as it seems to be, right? So we have to set out, okay, we've got this position. If you build it, they will come. We've got to find the person. Because remember, we did all this based on conversations about just trends and where the field is going, my own anger about my own situation, and the needs of the college and what we thought would help. So we never thought about who is this person and where are they? And so we had a number of challenges in doing that. First off, collaboration, because we're inviting a bunch of people to the table. We've got folks from both departments who are coming together to work on this. We had to convince people of the need for the position. We had to establish the criteria. That took much longer than you think it would because the list was as long as our arm. And then the problem becomes when you go to find somebody, who are you going to find that's bringing all of this knowledge from all of these different areas? We were looking for a unicorn that could also fly. What's a unicorn that flies? Is that an alicorn? Pegasus, thank you. I'm just checking to see if you're paying attention. So we're looking for a Pegasus who also poops rainbow Skittles. You know, it was this individual that was bringing all of these wonderful skills to the table and experiences to the table, and we just kind of we knew what we wanted, but we sort of moved forward on a wing and a prayer that this person actually existed somewhere. But that's what it was. And so we set about the process of looking. And we were blessed to find, I'm going to read it because Dr. Hughes is not going to want me to say these things because she's way too modest, so I'm going to say them. I'm going to read them from my paper. In 2022, we had a number of applicants for this position, and people presented, and we had a very, very skilled pool of people. And what we found was there were people who showed strengths in one area who would be very strong in SPED education, but not as strong in gifted. We would have people who were remarkably strong in gifted education and not as strong in SPED. We had people who didn't have coordinator experiences. We had people who weren't strong as a researcher. And then we found Dr. Hughes. In 2022, I'm going to read it as I've written it down. Cleveland State University was blessed to hire Dr. Claire Hughes, a nationally known expert in twice exceptional education with a master's degree, a PhD, and classroom experience in gifted education and special education. When I tell you, if you believe in love at first sight, that was kind of the comment we made as a search committee. We met Dr. Hughes and we said, that's it. This is it. Her vision for where the program was going to go, it matched. It was as if we had been having these conversations for years among ourselves. The part of me that's a parent took a deep breath. Dr. Hughes won't remember, but the very first question I'd asked her as we were walking was a parent question. And she just kind of, oh, sure, blah, blah, blah. And she gave me an answer, and I thought, I think I love you. But the vision matched perfectly for where we were. And from that time, we've seen the program creation and growth, and it has been beyond what we as faculty, as we were conceptualized in the position, thought it would be. The program itself focuses on not just the integration of SPED and gifted education, but an in-depth knowledge of connecting to and communicating values and processes of these fields and supporting parents and students and families. And I can say, as a colleague, I have a ton of respect for Dr. Hughes and what she has accomplished. As a parent of a son who is now a college student himself, I see the work she's doing, and the only criticism I would have of Dr. Hughes is that she did not show up in our lives 15 years earlier, because the program itself has become everything from that first conversation with Dr. Galetta, the program has become everything we hoped it to be and more. And so, that is us then to now. We are excited to think about where we're going as we move forward, but I think it's apropos for us to close my talk, or my part of this talk, by just applauding Dr. Hughes for all the work she has done.
Yeah. As you can see, it was meant to be. It was absolutely meant to be. I was at the right place. They were at the right space. I never, in my wildest dreams, imagined I would end up at Cleveland State. I mean, no insult to Cleveland, but I had no concept of it. But this is sort of the first time I've heard the full story of Brian and the Bryans. And I want you to understand the power of a parent, the power of a really, of somebody who is willing to wait. The impact that you will have on kids may not directly help your own child, but they're going to hopefully help other children. So I'm hoping that through collaboration with your organizations, with communication through your organizations, with building a community of twice exceptional, that Cleveland State is not a Pegasus with a unicorn, or a bee, or whatever we are, that we're not this unique kind of place, because we do have friends. We have friends at Bridges, we have friends at Johns Hopkins, we have friends at Baylor, we have friends at the university level, we have schools out there, there are communities out there that we need to begin to foster and to develop.